Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Adam Golov, Marketing and Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I want to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers, so please write your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we will make them available on our website. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. Today we are thrilled to introduce Michael Will, co-CEO and founder of ESI Laboratory. Michael has a background in both law and technology. He has practiced law as both a litigator and transactional lawyer. His experience as a litigator was gained at Clifford Chance, Lloyd's of London, and Quinn & Manuel. As a finance lawyer, he worked at Allen & Overy, where he specialized in derivatives and structured finance. A serial entrepreneur, Michael is the founder of ESILAB's financial services and legal big data consulting practice, and is the originator of the ESILAB technology suite, including Production Analyzer, overseeing all aspects of development and commercialization. Without further ado, welcome Michael.
Thank you, Adam. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We are going to share some views that we have on sensitive material, in particular how that material can be protected via redaction. First of all, by way of agenda, we'll tell you a little bit about ESI Laboratory, because I'm suspecting not all of you will know about us. We'll then discuss sensitive material in a variety of different market sectors, and then redaction, in particular methods of redaction, challenges of redaction, and consequences that flow from failure to redact. We will then look in a little detail at redaction in legal proceedings, and then we will look at our solution for redactions called Production Analyzer. We'll give you an introduction to that as well as a demonstration as well. ESI Laboratory LLC, or ESILAB as we call ourselves, is a division of DCL. A division of the DCL group. DCL was, of course, established in 1981. It has 65 employees based in the US and has converted over 3 billion pages to date. Currently, for one of our largest clients, we are processing in the region of 2 million pages per month. ESILAB's mission is to provide both products and data consulting services to the legal and financial services sector, and our first product in this area is the ESILAB Production Analyzer. Production Analyzer provides users with the ability to automatically identify redactions in large document portfolios at high levels of accuracy. It was originally designed for use in the legal industry, but as we've discovered, has application to all markets that deal with sensitive material, particularly those that are subject to regulatory or legislative oversight. So what is sensitive material? Well, that really depends in which market you're operating in. From a legal perspective, it primarily refers to privileged material and attorney work product. If you're in the government sector, of course, you're looking at classified information, be it top secret, secret, or confidential information, together with exempt information if you're responsible for Freedom of Information Act activities. On the corporate, financial services, and healthcare side, which deal, of course, with intellectual property and trade secrets, as well as protected personal information, that's PPI, or personally identifiable information. Basically, we treat those two as synonymous, and they basically mean information which can be used to distinguish or trace an individual's identity. Some examples might be your date of birth, email address, home address, and of course social security numbers, credit card numbers, etc. Redaction is one of the ways in which you can protect sensitive information. What is it? Well, it's basically obfuscation of a portion of an image or document so as to preserve the confidentiality of sensitive material contained in that document. What gets redacted has changed in recent years. It used to be that it was just the body of a document because we were dealing with physical pages. But now it's not just the body because we've moved into the electronic realm. It's also metadata such as the authors of a document, creation date, modification date, access date, track changes, and other metadata that can be found within a particular file type. When one is looking at how people actually apply redactions, there are a variety of techniques. Somewhat old school is the black marker technique or redaction tape. But these methods really have fallen by the wayside, and most people now rely on some kind of software to apply redactions. Redaction capability is provided, for example, in Adobe Acrobat. I think their latest version is version 11, and it's very common in most eDiscovery review platforms. Now, these platforms provide people with the ability to do what we call item-by-item redaction, so a human is making a decision as to which particular item to redact on a case-by-case basis, or it can operate on an automatic or semi-automatic basis via the use of technology known as regular expressions, for example. And on the right-hand side, you have some examples of text within a document that has been redacted. There are three prime redaction types. There are image-based redactions, where someone will physically put an image over a piece of text to obscure it. There are what we call text-based redactions, where someone, instead of putting an image over a particular piece of text, effectively puts a transparent image over it and puts the word redacted to indicate that the text has actually been modified. And there's also what we call the hybrid redaction, which is a combination of image and textual redaction. Redaction presents two main challenges. First off is what we call missed redactions. These are redactions that should have been made but were never actually attempted. So, for example, in 2009, the bank HSBC acknowledged that a bug in its redaction software resulted in the disclosure of sensitive information relating to its customer base. Similarly, in 2010, the Federal Judicial Center reported that 1 in every 3,391 documents filed in the court system, that's the federal court system and the bankruptcy court, contained unredacted social security numbers. Then we come to what we call ineffective redaction. These are redactions that were attempted but have proved to be ineffective. What we've discovered is that many entities actually have no idea how much sensitive material they've disclosed in the past via ineffective redactions, and as a result have concerns about their legal, financial, criminal, regulatory, and reputational exposure. Some examples of an ineffective redaction would be a US government report into the circumstances surrounding the death of an Italian Major General, Nicola Calipari, in Iraq, and then perhaps more famously in 2009, disclosure of information contained in a transcript involving litigation between Facebook and ConnectU. The information that was disclosed included Facebook's internal valuation of itself, $3.7 billion, and a settlement amount proposal of between $31 to $65 million. Here is actually an extract from that transcript between Facebook and ConnectU. You can see that on the left-hand side, it looks like a perfectly redacted, unsealed transcript. You can see that it has the word redacted, then there's some white space, then there's some text, and then there's some more text redacted at the bottom. Unfortunately, if you just do Control-A, Control-C, and copy the text that you actually capture that way into a text editor, for example, you actually find that you have access to the complete text of the document. So this is an example of an ineffective redaction example. Consequences of failure to redact can actually be quite serious. From the legal perspective, you may waive privilege. You may find yourself subject to court sanctions. If you have an unhappy client, you may be sued for negligence, and the bar authorities may actually commence misconduct proceedings against you. If you're in government, of course, you may damage the national security interests, and of course, you'll suffer a loss of reputation as well. In the corporate, financial services and healthcare sector, you may lose loss of competitive advantage because you've disclosed trade secrets. You may be subject to lawsuits by people who are upset that you've lost their information or failed to cover it up and redact it. And of course, you will suffer loss of reputation. There's also quite extensive legislative, regulatory, and criminal liability arising out of a broad range of legislation. For example, the Federal Trade Commission Act, which regulates consumer personal information, has the ability to impose penalties of $16,000 for each offense, so that's for each redaction, and also has the power to lock you up for up to 10 years. Under the Financial Services Modernization Act, which regulates non-public personal information collected by financial institutions, again you have penalties of up to $16,000 per offense and the possibility of jail time for up to 5 years. HIPAA, or the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, regulates protected health information, and financial penalties under this legislation can range anywhere between $100 to $1.5 million. Pretty serious consequences. So let's take a look at redaction in the context of litigation. It's something a lawyer spends an awful lot of time, and they actually complain about it, frankly. There's no doubt that volumes of eDiscovery are increasing at an exponential rate. In big ticket litigation, you can have millions of pages of documents disclosed. For example, in the Vioxx class action products liability litigation, 2.3 million documents were produced, and one assumes that the documents had more than one page to them. And in Intel Corp microprocessor antitrust litigation, in fact, data shows that they actually produced around about 150 million pages in that litigation. Now, it's important to bear in mind that if someone produces a page, there are many pages that they will have actually reviewed before then that they will have kept to themselves. On average, though, the average litigant discloses to the other party, reviews prior to disclosure to the other party, around about 1.5 million pages. And they actually disclose 600,000 pages that have been reviewed. So as far as redactions is concerned, you're really looking at a needle in a haystack. Our information reveals that under 1% of all produced pages will be redacted. So that's 1% of the 600,000. How are decisions made as to what gets A, produced, and B, redacted? The document review phase of litigation is where lawyers review what we call electronically stored information, or ESI, and they're trying to make two determinations. First of all, is the information relevant? And this is usually done by relatively junior attorneys, sometimes contract attorneys, and is known as by the name of first level review. Once that review process is complete, you then go on to the second and most expensive type of review, which is the second level review, which is for privilege. And this is done by very expensive lawyers, sometimes 3-year qualified lawyers, and actually takes quite a long time because there's a lot of thought associated with analyzing the documents, and if decisions are made to redact particular documents, they might be documents in isolation, or they might be documents in an email chain. There's a lot of thought and actual pain associated with performing the redactions and making sure those redactions are consistent with other documents that you have in your portfolio. And in fact, there's a well-known study by the RAND Institute that indicates that 73% of eDiscovery costs are attributable to document review. Now, if a document is privileged, lawyers must make two determinations. If the whole of the document is privileged, so the complete thing, then they can withhold it. If only part of the document is privileged, for example, it might be some communications with a lawyer appears in the middle of an email chain, then they should only redact that portion of the email chain that relates to the communications with a lawyer. Now, the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, or the FRCP, governs all aspects of civil litigation proceedings in federal courts in the United States. And there are two rules that have a bearing on redaction. The first is Rule 26b-5, and the next is Rule 5.2. So let's take a look at the first one, 26b-5, which relates to logs that the parties produce. 26b-5 says that you can't just withhold and not tell anyone about what you've done in connection with that particular material. You have to provide the court and your opponent with a means of assessing whether you've actually made the right decision as far as that particular piece of document. So the way the parties do this is they expressly make the claim of privilege. It might be attorney work product or legal privilege in a log. And in that log, they must describe the nature of the document or communication or tangible thing they haven't produced in sufficient amount of detail to enable the other party to assess the merits of the claim to withhold. The production of these logs has actually been subject to judicial confirmation to the effect that it does satisfy the requirements of Rule 26b-5. And the nature of the log depends on what's being withheld. It will be a privilege log if you are withholding a document in its entirety. It will be a redaction log if you are withholding a document in part. Generally what happens is, because people have a mix of documents that are wholly withheld and disclosed in part via redaction, is they will have a combination log, and there will be some field within that log that indicates whether it's a redaction or completely withheld. Now, in the largest cases involving many millions of documents, production of those documents will invariably take place on a rolling basis. You don't want to dump millions of pages on your opponent 6 months after the proceedings, or many months after the proceedings have commenced. So what generally the parties agree is to a rolling production of discovery. And what happens here is that often the documents that have been redacted are produced quite some time before the related log that describes the reason for the redaction. Now, all lawyers involved in litigation pay a great deal of interest to redacted documents. These documents are always the ones they're interested in reviewing, and that's in large part because they often want to challenge the redactions that have been made. In the absence of a log accompanying a production, the only way that lawyers can really access and challenge redacted content is to perform a time-consuming manual review in each and every page. The other FRCP rule that applies or touches on redactions is Rule 5.2. And here the court expressly says that the following types of information must be redacted for privacy protection before it's actually filed with the court. All key documents have to be filed with a court, and many of these documents might contain, for example, social security number. In such circumstances, you have to redact all but the last 4 of those numbers. If you have an individual's birthday that appears in the document, you can disclose the year but not the month and the day. And if you have a minor's name, you can only use their initials. And there, when you have financial account numbers, you can disclose all but the last 4. Sorry, you must disclose all but the last 4 digits of those numbers. Where would this information appear? Well, it could appear in court pleadings, motions, letters to the court, depositions, subpoenas, and records of many kinds: medical insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, workers' compensation, and of course there are also contracts and leases. And most of these documents, as I alluded to earlier on, are filed via the online public access to court electronic records or PACER system. So let's take a look now at Production Analyzer and what it does. Production Analyzer provides lawyers with a quick and cost-effective means to obtain tactical advantage by providing early access to redacted content on inbound production within hours of receipt. It is also a means of verifying that a lawyer's outbound productions actually conform to the content of their relevant privilege and redaction logs. With regard to the non-legal community, that might be government agencies and corporations, Production Analyzer provides a quick and cost-effective means to assess and, if necessary, rectify existing legal, financial, criminal, regulatory, and reputational PII exposure caused by defective redactions. Production Analyzer has been designed with a series of features. First of all, it can be run, if you're a lawyer, against inbound and outbound eDiscovery productions. It can also be run against file servers. So if you're an institution, you're unsure what documents have been redacted within your document repository, we can run it against the file servers that hold those particular documents. Production Analyzer is capable of identifying a wide variety of redaction formats, including, as we've seen, unlabeled black box redactions and text-based redactions. Production Analyzer can be automatically run to identify redacted documents produced prior to receipt of applicable logs. And once those logs are actually received, you can test the veracity of them against the Production Analyzer report. Another use of Production Analyzer actually arises where there is an absence of redactions. If you're receiving productions and the other side has not redacted, that may be a sign that too much electronically stored information is being withheld on the grounds of privilege. It is also possible within Production Analyzer to perform redaction comparisons to identify deletion of redactions in the event of a subsequently amended production. Frequently, as I said earlier on, redactions are challenged. The court will make a decision requiring removal of certain redactions, and the parties will exchange a new production, and the Production Analyzer will allow you to see very quickly and very easily what's changed. It's rather like Word's blackline functionality. It would also allow identity of ineffective redactions, and there are built-in quality control tools to identify and exclude false positives. So let's take a look at a demo. The application has been designed to be very easy to use. Here it is. I've actually run an analysis before we started today. So all I need to do is open the results. But before I do that, I'd just actually like to show people that the way it works. When you receive a new production and they're somewhere on the network, all you need to do is select files. What happens then is you have to provide some metadata that's associated with billing. So subscriber ID would be the ESILAB client. The operator ID would be the individual using the application within the ESILAB client. Matter ID is your client matter ID for the particular matter that you're dealing with, and then you have reference to the production folder, which is where the documents are actually contained. And we can see that we have a folder here. You can select documents at the folder level or at the individual file level. I'm selected the folder level here. And then you press OK. And then you press Run Analyzer. I've already done that, as I said earlier on. So as I open the results now, I select Production Analyzer Final. And what happens here is that I get some metadata associated with what we call each artifact on the page. Now, an artifact might be an image-based redaction, or it might be a text-based redaction. We will provide you with a snippet of the relevant redaction, so as you're going through you can easily identify which row relates to which particular redaction. You have some information about the file name, and this is configurable. You could include Bates numbers, etc. Page number. Confidence is how confident the algorithm is that it has actually identified a particular artifact as a true redaction. Here we can see that we're very confident we have 100%. You can filter by artifact types. There are 3 artifact types. There's an image-based redaction, no redaction, or a text-based redaction. So if I want to filter and just see all image-based redactions, I can do so. Or conversely, if I want to see all text-based redactions, I can do so. Or if I want to see all the pages with no redactions, because I want to see if there's any false negatives, I can do that. Now, let's say that, for example, on this first artifact here that I'm looking at, in this first row, I actually decide that this is not actually a true redaction. It is possible very quickly to disapprove that particular redaction. So what will happen is the particular artifact will still have the border around it that's associated with a particular row, but that border will have a cross in the middle. Now you can cycle through each particular redaction one by one, and notice how the blue border changes on the right hand side to become a red dotted border, which indicates that is the row that has focus. I just skipped. Let me go back to page. Here we go. I go from row by row. We can see that on page 2 we have no redactions. On page 3 we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With help for reasons of privilege. And then we have no redactions on the final page. So after I finish my review, I can save the results, and then I can export them. And we can export, for example, in a wide variety of formats. Here we have a dot concordance file. Very easy. And you can use that as an overlay file to populate any review platforms, for example. Now, let's assume this was actually a second production of redacted documents. Previously, I'd gone back and I challenged some redactions. What I'd be able to do is to see how this new production differs from the original production. So if I now select Open Results, find the original file, what you'll see is the same document, but if you have a box that's clear, in other words, you can see through it, you know that this was originally redacted text. This time, instead of going artifact by artifact, I'm going to go page by page. No redactions on page 2. There are some redactions on page 3, but look what's been unredacted. Here. There we go. That's a text-based redaction. Okay, Adam, pretty short and sweet. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, thank you, Mike. A very informative webinar indeed. We've had several questions come in. The first being, can you export production analyzer results to eDiscovery review platforms?
Well, as I showed you, you can via an overlay file. Our base export format is XML, which you can transform into a variety of different formats. I should also say that we've entered into a developer agreement with Relativity, one of the largest eDiscovery providers, and we're working hard to integrate this into K-Cura's Relativity platform.
Excellent, thank you. The next question has come in is, how many pages per hour can Production Analyzer process?
That really depends on the hardware that you have available. Properly configured within our environment, we're capable of processing around about 100,000 TIFF images per hour. This process, of course, is something that ideally you would leave running overnight.
Excellent, thank you. The next question has come in is, what installation configurations do you offer?
Again, that depends. Our primary offering is cloud-based software as a service. For large providers, that might be someone who is processing in the region of around about 2 million pages a month. We would consider an on-premises installation.
Excellent, thank you. And the last question that's come in so far is, what other capabilities does the Production Analyzer provide?
Right, well, it's interesting that it's not called Redaction Analyzer, and the reason for that is that there are going to be many modules to Production Analyzer. In addition to redaction detection, we can actually run reports based on the legends that might appear at the bottom of a document. So how many documents does the production identify as client confidential, how many are attorney eyes only, etc. It will also be possible to have some pretty advanced OCR capability. What we have found is that the effectiveness of OCR algorithms really depends on the nature of the page that the OCR algorithm is trying to process. Currently what happens is you choose an algorithm primarily for each particular production. What Production Analyzer would be able to do is to determine the nature of the page. For example, does it have exclusively tables in, or is it exclusively text, or is it a mix of table and text? And then what we would be able to do on a page-by-page basis is switch algorithms so you actually get a better result, depending on the nature of the page.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mike. That's all the questions we have received so far or today. If you have any further questions, Mike, would you want to just show your contact information in case people have any additional questions?
Yep. And please feel free to contact me.
Great. And then I'd like to thank everyone for attending. This will conclude today's broadcast. You'll be able to access the recorded version of this webinar in the archive section of our website located at www.dclab.com. Also, our next webinar will be Tuesday, June 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, titled Failing Content Management Projects, Human Causes with Social Solutions, being presented by Joe Pearman, a lead consultant at Metcon. Thank you everyone for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you.